Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. There's actually a lot to talk about today, so let's get right to it. The Atlantic Basin, not done yet. Invest area, 95L, 60% chance of development over the next several days. Not quite in the subtropics. We normally think that we're going to have development at the end of the season and even postseason. Somewhere in this area seems to be pretty common over the last several years especially, but this is down still south of 20 degrees north latitude, so it's in the tropics. And the good news, though, it's not going to impact land directly, even if it does develop. This is Bermuda over here, and we'll see what happens as it gets into this neck of the woods and tries to develop some. Maybe it'll send some swells eventually towards the leewards up here, the northern leewards, maybe Bermuda. And we'll take a look at this closer on satellite and then eventually in the computer models. In the eastern Pacific, the remnants of Willa that made landfall as a pretty intense hurricane here in Mexico yesterday, now moving across Mexico and then eventually into Texas, and this will bring heavy rain and the threat of flooding in some areas across this region. General storminess, breezy, fall-like conditions. You're not going to have that hot, humid, tropical feel to the air because, hey, it's late October. But this could bring some rather heavy rainfall across this region, and where that sets up exactly is impossible to know this far in advance. So the old saying, stay aware, keep an ear to the ground, all those adages, check your radar and trusted sources, etc., so forth and so on. Generally speaking, I think the I-10 corridor through here will be the most heavily impacted as this remnant low comes up and a new low pressure, non-tropical in nature, develops and then eventually moves along, developing again off the coast and then up into the mid-Atlantic and northeast, a rather complicated pattern overall. Let's make an animated GIF out of this real quick. I forgot to do that, so we'll do it now. I know he's got to have the ads to help pay for the services that he provides, but I like the GIF animations. So we'll let this load. There it is. Beautiful. And we'll say cancel and goodbye to that web tab. All right. So the broader perspective here from tropicaltidbits.com, which he is also, by the way, on Patreon. So, support what Levi's doing if you can. I want to just make sure I mention that because he does a great job, wouldn't you say? All right. So that being said, part of that great job is to be able to look at these satellite animations. This is the leftovers, not very impressive, of Willa, and you can see the strong westerly winds cutting across a good deal of the northern hemisphere. And then this is our non-tropical area that may become tropical. Water temperatures are still warm out here, but it's late October and things are starting to wind down. The stronger westerly winds are setting up, and we're not going to see much of a chance for development of anything solid and organized, I think, from here on out, especially close to the land masses. It's not 100% certain that I'm not 100% certain that won't happen, but it's going to get really hard to do. Looking at the Weather Service map of the lower 48, we'll start looking at this more and more as we get towards and into the off-season, as winter storms come in and do their thing. Currently, some flash flood and just general flooding advisories and watches are up for parts of Texas. Otherwise, the map is generally quiet, but this is going to fill in and become more active as we get through the next few days, which I'll show you. All right, so looking at the GFS from the 12Z run today, this is the lower 48 and vicinity, and you can see this is the east coast of the U.S. There's Florida, and here comes that low pressure area. Not very impressive overall. It tries to form another surface low off the Carolina coast, the mid-Atlantic, and then it just kind of rides up the coastal plain, bringing wet, windy fall conditions, and then another low dives in the trough. So in the east, it's going to be rather gloomy, wet leaves on the ground, that kind of thing, but no major storm developing out of this system. It looked like it might try to do that a few days ago, but I'm not seeing much evidence of that happening now. And even what I said about the I-10 corridor being heavily impacted here, or the most impacted, might not even come to pass, as this system doesn't seem to pack as much prowess as it looked like it would a few days ago. Nevertheless, rainy, stormy, windy, but nothing you can't handle across a good deal of the southeast and up the east coast, mid-Atlantic, and northeast. All right, and if we look at it from the perspective here of the Atlantic, the western Atlantic, I want to show you 95L and what it looks like it might do. It's way over here off the screen, and you can get a zoomed-in perspective of this energy coming out of what's left over from Willa, and some rainfall like I was mentioning. But you see really not much happening even as we move through time, excuse me, from the system 95L. So that's good news. There it is up there. I was wondering when it would come in. So it's probably going to try to consolidate and develop into a more cohesive feature. There's Bermuda right there. So, you know, something to keep an eye on, but nothing to worry about and be concerned with. Certainly no problems for the Lesser Antilles. Maybe if it develops up here, you get some swells coming out with an increase in surf, and that is about it. Hey, look at this. In the Western Pacific, powerful super typhoon, I don't know if you call it Yutu, Y-U-T-U, however you pronounce that, doesn't matter in the scheme of things because it is a monster of a typhoon. Very well developed, solid, warm eye, as you can see in this visible shot. And if we go and we look, this is actually the floater page from the Hurricane Center. Some of it's still active, believe it or not. If we look at it from the colorized infrared, way, way, way powerful there when it hit. In fact, it looked like it was stronger when it hit than it is now. A devastating impact on the Northern Marianas. Where is that? I'll show you in just a moment. This is the radar scope. Unfortunately, it was 8 hours old. Something happened at the radar site down here, and it pooped out just as it was really coming into view, that incredible eye wall. And this eventually moved over the Northern Marianas, and you can see that here on the map. There's Guam. If we zoom in up here, this is where this super typhoon passed directly over the eye with something like this, roughly, and just a horrible, I mean, come on, you know, 180 mile per hour, anything, just no way. Irma, think about that, what we saw in Barbuda, and probably had a similar thing here in parts of the Northern Marianas. We'll get some news reports out of there. Roughly 53,000 people live in that part of the world. It's part of the U.S. Territories, you know, okay, so it's a U.S. interest, and I'm eager to hear what happened as this incredible typhoon moved through. It's just been one of those years, one of those 2 years, man, something, you know, anyway, we're not even going to, we'll address where we're going with this in the future at another time. It just seems like they are getting stronger, but hey, maybe it's just a coincidence. And we'll end on that note before I start digging a hole that I can't get out of. Luckily, nothing else brewing like that in the near future. All right, so there's a look at everything for today. You are now up to date with what I know. I'll be back tomorrow with more. We'll see what happens with that developing East Coast storm or whatever, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk with you again on Thursday.